Hello, welcome to this seminar on church for millennials. Please accept my apologies that I'm not able to deliver this live. Something came up that I needed to be at today, but I hope that you'll still get lots of good ideas for how to do outreach and discipleship for the millennial generation. That's what we're looking at here. So, and millennials being those who are born between the years of 1980 and 2000. So people that are roughly now aged 21 to 41-ish in the church, and obviously a huge missing gap in many of our churches. So, brief introduction. My name is Mark Williamson. You can follow me there on Twitter. I've been working with this age group, and I'm just 1 year above it. I was born in 1979. I've been working with this age group for pretty much the past 20, maybe even the past 25 years, dare I say it. I run a charity called One Rock International that does Christian-based leadership training. We resource people in spiritual leadership so that they can start up or scale up mission projects. And we're particularly focused on reaching this age group. I also run a fresh expression for church, a church plant, a young adult congregation, trying to reach millennials, especially out of Methodist Central Hall, Westminster. That's called the Sanctuary Congregation. I've led that for the past 5 years. And previously I was involved in another church plant that was working with millennials. And then I'm also chair of a church planting network called Fresh Expressions. I say all of that to say I have some experience in this, and yet I still don't consider myself to be an expert. I'm certainly not saying that I have all of the answers. I've got some suggestions for you. And actually, I'm going to kind of go through 12 suggestions that are useful for keeping in the back of your mind when you're trying to work with this age group. But I'm not saying that I have it all sorted by any means. These are things that I have picked up. These are things that I'm still experimenting with and trying. And if they help you and see you more, bear fruit for the kingdom, then fantastic. And if you've got other ideas that I've not thought of, please contact me on Twitter. I'll put my email at the end of the presentation. I would love to learn from you and what you are doing. Okay, one of the things that I have been most impacted by in my understanding, certainly, of how to do church with this age group is the Fresh Expressions model of church planting, a 6-stage journey, as they call it. Some of you may be familiar with this. This isn't aimed particularly at working with millennials. This is a way of planting and growing contextual churches that will reach people who are not yet members of church, the sorts of people who are very unlikely to come through the doors of a traditional congregation. But I will include many millennials in that category. So I have found this 6-stage process really helpful. And their suggestion when you're trying to establish a form of church that might appeal to those who are not interested in any normal forms of church, start with listening. You have to start with listening to get to know and understand that particular target group, group of people that you're trying to reach. What is it that they value? What is it that they're passionate about? What is it that they're afraid of? What are their concerns and their anxieties? You have to go in with listening to be able to start that process well. That can then lead to loving and serving, figuring out what are the ways that you can add value to that community, to that group of people. How can you serve them in a meaningful way? Doing that over time can allow you to build a community, a small group of people that you're loving and serving, and hopefully are now engaged in also working alongside you in loving and serving others of that demographic. Through that can lead to you then exploring discipleship, talking overtly about who Jesus is. And as people start to make commitments in following him, then you're training them in what does it actually mean to be a serious follower of Jesus. And then out of that leads to church taking shape and starting to worship together and figure out what would a contextual church shaped by this demographic authentically look like, so that we're not just reverting to our traditional church models. And then if that is successful, you can do the process again. This has been replicated so successfully by many church planters across the UK and beyond. And the whole process obviously should be underpinned by prayer, ongoing listening, relationship with the wider church, as well as just with the demographic that you're seeking to reach out to. So this is fairly well established. This is known. This has proven useful for so many church planters, church workers, seeking to reach out to a specific demographic of the population. In some ways, I would summarize that as the listening, yes, but then the four bigger circles, you could say loving and serving, is that mission. It's starting to reach out and actually do something of worth that will serve that community. Then leads to community, then leads to discipleship, and then finally leads to worship. I used to be part of a church reaching out to millennials, and we described ourselves as a community dedicated to worship, discipleship, and mission. And so you can see it's the same four things in many ways there, worship, discipleship, mission, community. But what I found liberating, and one of the profound things about this model, is that it changes the order that most of us approach it in. It suggests we begin with mission. And that's often the radical thing of let's go and meet with the people and listen to the people that we are seeking to reach out to and find ways of serving them. And then when we've been able to serve and share Jesus with them, that can lead to discipleship, teaching. So what does it mean to follow this person, Jesus? And then that leads to worship. And that I find is an inversion of our traditional paradigm of how we might seek to church plant or reach out to a new group of people, which is let's start with worship, because that's the easiest thing. Let's create an alternative worship service in a style which we think will appeal to that demographic. And then through that, we hope to attract people and start to disciple them in what it means to follow Jesus, and then equip them for mission to go out and start serving others and furthering the kingdom in other different ways. This model says, don't do it that way. And I've seen the truth of this, and other people have told me, if you start with worship, you tend to end up recycling Christians. You will appeal to other existing Christians, often disaffected Christians that have left other traditional church groups and feel like they don't fit in. But you will struggle to reach out to people who are not Christians. And so if your whole purpose is to have mission and reach out and engage with millennials who are not yet part of church, I would really encourage you, although it is so tempting and it's so easy to start with mission, don't. Try and genuinely start with the listening and then the loving and service with the mission. And then out of that, some new form of church may well take shape, which is going to be authentically relevant and contextual far more to that particular demographic. And this is not in any way to say that obviously we change our doctrine. No, we're following Jesus. That's the whole point. We're trying to be authentic Christians. What does it mean to follow him? We're not watering down anything that is key in what the gospel message is. We're just saying, don't start with an alternative worship service, because that will often put a ceiling on either how big you can grow or certainly the types of people who may come to it, because you'll end up recycling Christians. If you know that going into it and you want to build a critical mass of Christians, then there is a value in doing that. But if you want to become authentically missional, I strongly encourage you, and not only me, the Fresh Expressions wisdom would suggest, begin with mission, then leading to discipleship, then leading to worship. I say all of that kind of as an introduction, partly as a paradigm setter, so you know where I'm coming from on this. But the main bulk of this session, I want to give you 12 principles that I have picked up. 6 on evangelism or on mission, on outreach, and then 6 on discipleship. And as I say, I'm not claiming that I am the expert in these things. I've certainly not created these things myself. These are bits that I have picked up from various other reports, conversations, experiences. So I'll talk through some of these. We'll look at evangelism, and then we'll look at discipleship as well. The ones that are in orange, I want to focus on more especially, and the white ones tend to more speak for themselves. So to begin with, how can we do how can we be effective in our evangelism and reaching out to people, especially millennials. Two good principles: have an excellent website and be consistent in your social media. This age group particularly are used to finding their information online, and an organization needs to look credible online on its website presence if it's then going to be considered as credible in reality. So it won't do to just throw together a lowest common denominator. Oh, here's a very simple, website that looks like it was designed 20 years ago at the beginnings of the internet. You need to have a credible looking website. And also, if you're using social media, be consistent with it. It's far better to only use one or two social media channels, like just use Twitter or Facebook, rather than trying to do everything, YouTube and Instagram and TikTok or whatever it is, and doing it all badly. One of the big things that I've learned is people of this age group often watch and follow on social media, even if they don't overtly click the follow button. They will be looking at what's out there before they will choose to actually come and cross the threshold. So having a credible website, having a consistent social media presence is really useful. And the converse is, often it's better to not have a website than to have a website that does not look credible to that age group, or to not be on certain social media channels rather than do it badly. Open and honest messaging and engaging relevant content, I'll talk about more in a moment. And then some other obvious ones. Food draws people in. Some people say that food is the new Sunday worship service. The sitting around the common table and eating together has replaced for many people the sense of let's gather together for an extended period of sung worship or whatever. Food is such a great way of drawing people in and building relationship, building community. And then create a place where people are comfortable inviting their friends. That's one of the key things in terms of how can we do effective evangelism and mission. Is this a space where people feel comfortable inviting others to, their peers to, especially their peers who are not followers of Jesus, but are maybe open to that? That's what you need to create, that sort of space where other members are comfortable inviting others to. We'll come back to the orange ones in a moment, but then just to look at 12 principles then in discipleship. And again, I'll talk briefly through the white ones and we'll get into the orange in more detail. Give people roles and responsibilities. One of the great ways to encourage people to grow is actually to give them a role, enable them to get involved, take on a responsibility. They will grow through doing that. They will hopefully become more committed to your particular project or church plant or whatever it is, and B, to the whole cause of the kingdom and to following Jesus. So giving people a role is so profound in helping them grow. I'll talk through in more detail creating a communal rhythm of life, linking spirituality with justice, and having one-to-one conversations with passionate and holy role models. Those are three ways that I think are really profound tools that we can especially help millennials in their discipleship. And then two others: build community and have fun together. There's got to be fun as part of it. Life is too short and it should be exciting following Jesus. So have fun. And then maybe the catch-all thing for discipleship: create spaces where people can encounter God and talk about him. And those conversations are what is going to be a massive spur to helping them grow in their discipleship. If you can create that space where people regularly encounter God and are comfortable talking about him, discipleship will occur. Just like if you can create that place where people are comfortable inviting their friends who are not Christians but are interested, who are spiritually open, then mission will occur. So how you create those spaces becomes so key, and that's why it's so important to be contextual on what are we doing to particularly reach these particular age groups. But let's focus on these 5 orange areas. So this is going to be the remaining 15 minutes, and I'm going to share some of what we are doing at Sanctuary in trying to reach millennials, especially in these areas. Open and honest messaging. So what do I mean by that? Open rather than closed, okay? At Sanctuary, we don't lead in our communications with, oh, we're a church or we're a Christian group, because we find that that becomes a very closed or a binary thing. It's either yes or no. I'm a Christian or I'm not. Oh, you go to church, I don't. And it's very difficult then often to progress the conversation. Oh, that's who you are. That's not who I am. I'm on the other side of this divide that has appeared between us. We don't deny those things. So if someone says, oh, so you're a Christian group. Yeah. But the language that we use far more is, we're following Jesus. We're seeking to follow Jesus. We believe that this guy Jesus was actually God in human form. We believe that he's the wisest person who has ever lived. He is the greatest guru who teaches us how to live. We're exploring how to follow him. And suddenly that becomes much more open-ended. Oh, that's interesting. I've often wondered about Jesus. I would love to learn a little bit more about him. Hey, well, come along. Come and join us. We've got this event happening. We've got this meeting. Come and join the conversation. And hopefully it's much more open. It's much more accessible than that closed, we're a church, we're a Christian group. We want to encourage people, like they did in Scripture, come and see. Come and see. That's what Nathaniel said. Was it to Philip? Or no, was it the other way around? Philip said to Nathaniel, how can we extend that invitation in a way in which people will be interested in responding? So, to unpack that, we're about following Jesus. That's the core of who we are as Sanctuary. We're not ashamed about that in any way. We're very upfront, incredibly Jesus-focused. This is who we are. But we unpack it a bit more by saying we're a community following Jesus in order to explore spirituality, justice, and leadership. Those are three things that we think resonate with millennials, with people in the demographic that we're trying to reach out to across London. They are often interested in issues of spirituality, which relates obviously to, does God exist and how can I get to know him, but also that stuff on meaning and purpose and spiritual experiences and the other, and lots of people are interested in that conversation. We're passionate about justice, and we believe that many millennials are also passionate about justice. And we're passionate about leadership, about developing ourselves, growing in a sense of responsibility, understanding about concepts like stewardship. And we think that many millennials are also wanting to grow in their leadership capacity. So we look at those as almost three keys, three hooks that may interest people in joining the conversation. But then all that we do in those three is shaped by who Jesus is. Jesus is obviously the great expert in spirituality. If you want to have a relationship with God, you need to, at some point, you're going to encounter Jesus. If you're serious about any form of spirituality, you have to start to examine the claims of Jesus in order to move forward in any comprehensive survey of spirituality. Jesus is the expert. No one comes to the Father except through me. I would also suggest, if you're passionate about justice, if you want to see the rights of this world changed and this place turned into a better place, then you end up encountering Jesus's teaching on how to achieve justice, which was then influential on people like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King of let's overcome evil with love. And I would say if you're serious about leadership, then you're going to encounter the teachings of Jesus, who says, that others lord it over others and exercise authority, but not so with you. For you, whoever wants to be great should become servant and slave of all. So we think we can authentically say, we're passionate about these three areas in the context of what did Jesus say about them? And then the why that we're doing that, almost the vision, people say, well, why would you achieve this? Why would you do it? What's the value of following Jesus? We've used two phrases from Scripture, but that we think resonate with Christians and those who are not Christians, so that we can live life in all its fullness. That's what Jesus promised, John 10:10, that he wants to bring to us, and so that we can turn London or turn the world upside down, which is what the early church is described as doing in Acts. I think it's chapter 17, is it? At some point there. That's what we're seeking to do. And we think that that is appealing to many millennials. Say, hey, I want to live life in all its fullness. What does that mean? Yes, I feel like I'm missing out on something. I want to experience more. And that is obviously more in this life and eternal life in the next life as well. More in, accessing heaven. I want to live life in all its fullness. And I want to turn London or turn my particular part of the world upside down. So that's why we do it. That's how we communicate in what is hopefully an open and accessible way. That's the honest messaging. But also, I said one of the tips is engaging with relevant content. And so we try and make that spirituality, justice, and leadership message relevant to what people are doing. And we do whole series exploring these topics. We've worked through, so for each of these three areas, what is the good news of Jesus? What is it we're trying to share? Three of my favorite verses where I think Jesus makes these amazing good news statements. One we've already shared, I've come to bring you life in all its fullness. Two others, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace. I think that's good news. And come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That's amazing good news. Who doesn't want that? Whether you've been a Christian for 50 years or whether you're not and you're just starting to wonder about this person, Jesus, that's good news. That's an amazing promise. Come to me if you're weary and heavy laden. I mean, that's so contextually relevant. So many people are worried and wearied and anxious. And Jesus promises, I will give you rest. So we use these, we build our spirituality messaging, but our spirituality content on these verses, on these concepts. And that leads us to kind of an overall message in the area of spirituality. We say, come to Jesus or follow Jesus or have faith in Jesus, and God will bring you rest, wholeness, life in all its fullness, hope, love, joy, and peace. We often talk about the Magnificent Five that Bellis Will identified. Faith, hope, love, joy, peace. That's what it means to have life in all its fullness. And faith almost is the doorway, is the key. If you want to have more hope, love, joy, or peace in this life, then you need to grow your faith. Start having faith in Jesus, and you'll start to experience these other things. So having done that on spirituality, we did the same with justice and with leadership, so that we can have honest messaging. This is who we are. This is what we are genuinely exploring, but relevant content in these areas. Our justice key verses would be Jesus teaching in the Sermon on the Mount. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Go the extra mile, serve others. And then I love Paul's paraphrasing, really, of Jesus's teaching. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with love. And that, I think, is such a profound paradigm that, as I say, we've seen the truth of people like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr. have shown us the truth, the power in this. And it's so relevant for us today when we see so many injustices, and especially so many millennials are saying, hey, we need to campaign more on racial justice or on climate justice. How can we do that effectively? Well, I think this gives us an authentic voice and model and reason and message to the world. This is how we can overcome evil, not by becoming evil, but by becoming evil ourselves, but overcoming evil with love. So our overall message on justice is follow Jesus, and God will bring you a way to overcome evil and injustice using love rather than violence. And in doing so, you will help turn the world upside down. And we find that that is a message that resonates with millennials. That's what they want to see. And then finally, in leadership, one of my favorite verses, I teach on leadership, so I'm passionate about the subject, is this verse in Mark that I've already alluded to. Those regarded as rulers lord it over others, and high officials exercise authority over people. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. And so therefore, our leadership messaging and being honest about this is the content that we're actually engaged with and looking at. If you want to come and join us, it's follow Jesus, and God will bring you a way to live based on serving others rather than exploiting or oppressing others and abusing authority. And in doing so, you will also help turn the world and its injustices upside down. So that's some stuff on the open messaging, not leading with church or Christian, but we're following Jesus, and with hopefully engaging and relevant content that this age group are genuinely interested in. So that's the stuff I said I'd talk through more on the evangelism side, those two in the orange. Looking at discipleship. So 3 ways that we are exploring as Sanctuary at the moment in trying to be effective in discipling people who are millennials, people aged 21 to 41 at the moment. The rhythm of life, that linking of spirituality with justice, and these one-to-one conversations. So about 4 months ago, we finally created and unveiled our corporate, our communal rhythm of life. This is based on discussions that we've been having as Sanctuary for several months before. It's based on looking in depth at the book of Acts, especially the first 5 chapters on what is it the early church did. And it's looking at what other effective missional movements are doing around the world. And what are the sort of things that we should encourage people to do in order to help them genuinely achieve transformation in their lives and become mature, radical followers of Jesus. So we created 3 practices we encourage people to do each day, 3 each week, 3 each month, and 3 each year. So hopefully it's very easy to remember. It's not becoming excessive. It's not too much of a time commitment. It's not stuff that people cannot commit to, but it's got to be things that encourage people to follow Jesus in a way that authentically grows in spirituality, justice, and leadership, and that will genuinely transform their lives, enable God to work more deeply. This is how we disciple this generation. Okay, so daily we encourage people to pray. There's no set way that we encourage that. We recommend the Lord's Prayer as a model. I mean, that's the prayer that Jesus taught us, and to dwell in that, not just to race through it in 10 seconds, but to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour praying through it and going through it line by line and praying, well, what does this mean? You know, your kingdom come, your will be done. So what are the things that you're praying for? Give us this day our daily bread. So praying for our own needs and those of others in the community. So daily prayer, daily encouraging people to read the Bible. We're not too prescriptive on that. We're starting to look at other resources or tools that we might give to people. But the key encouragement is each day, get into the Word of God in some way. Start reading it, and you'll start to see your life more transformed. And then each day, we've coupled gratitude and worship. We think that gratitude is such a powerful thing. Psychologists are talking about this more and more and recognizing the value in us finding things that we are grateful for in the everyday. So I encourage people to think through, what are 3 things that you're grateful for that have happened that day, each day? And that should then lead us to worship, to giving thanks. Thank you, Lord. I'm grateful for these good things, and I'm grateful that it's you that has brought this. You are the author of all of this goodness in my life. We've done a whole series on mental health and the links between mental health and spiritual wholeness. Again, engaging and relevant content. And gratitude and worship, I think, are such powerful weapons in the fight against depression and anxiety and poor mental health. These are great ways that God has given to us in order to help us remain mentally healthy, to find joy, love, hope, peace. You see, it all links those things. So encouraging people each day to reflect on what they're grateful for and to lead them, therefore, to worship, to thanking God for that. Each week, we encourage people to do at least one act of kindness. And obviously, it's great if people want to do way more than that. But if you're just starting in this, it's, can you do one thing? That could be buying the big issue from a homeless person that they walk past, or offering to buy them a cup of coffee on their way into work. It could be allowing someone else to get onto the tube train first before they do. It could be saying a nice thing to someone at the office, who knows what, but it's trying to encourage this culture of kindness, of loving our enemies, of living out this teaching that Jesus gives to us. We encourage everyone each week to call or text a fellow member of the sanctuary community to encourage them. Do something or say something to encourage a fellow member of our community each week. And then in terms of being missional, invite someone else, someone new each week to come and be a part of what we're doing, either at our main meeting on our Thursdays or at some of the other things that we do that I'll get into our Justice Group activities. That's things that everyone can do at least once a week. Monthly, we will get together to do a purely social thing. It might have a small spiritual content, but the point is basically to build community and have fun. Monthly, we encourage everyone to do some form of justice activity. I'll talk in a moment about justice groups that we've set up that are each trying to turn the world upside down in different ways. And then also we encourage people monthly to have a coaching conversation, a one-to-one conversation, as I said, to help someone grow in what it means to follow Jesus and live out this life of spirituality, justice, and leadership. I'll talk again more on that in a moment. And then once a year, we try and go away for a weekend away. We've not been able to do that because of COVID for a long time, but we'd love to be able to do that again next year at some point. We'll do a missional day activity together where we all try and come together to do something together that is going to be impactful. And then we created this thing called weekend worship where we don't get together physically. Everyone is separate at home, whatever they're doing over the weekend, but we've got a set series of reflections or prayers or worship songs or guided meditations, things that we are all doing at home in this kind of communal activity, reflecting together, worshiping at home, but together. So those are three simple things, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, that each person can do that will hopefully bring transformation, disciple them in what it means to be a mature, zealous, serious follower of Jesus. So a little bit more on our justice groups, on our coaching conversations. We've identified 4 areas that we're passionate about in terms of trying to bring justice. And this has come mainly from the membership, enabling people to share their own passions. What are the areas where they think there's injustice and where we could get involved and do something? So the first group we set up was the homeless group, looking at how can we support people who are living on the streets, or not only on the streets, but actually those who are classed as vulnerable in accommodation and are maybe sofa surfing and don't have, guaranteed places where they're always going to be able to stay. They don't have security in terms of home. One of the biggest things we've started to do is volunteer at a local soup kitchen free meal. It's called the Open Door Meal. It meets in Pimlico on the 2nd and the 4th Friday of each month. It's run by a great church called St. James the Less. So we're trying to partner with them. We send regular groups of volunteers to go and help out at that meal. We also collect for the Wimbledon Food Bank. The Westminster Food Bank that is run by Westminster Chapel. So it's another great opportunity to build a relationship with a local church, and people can bring in tinned goods and toiletries to our sanctuary meetings, and we'll pass those on to the food bank about once a month. We'll try and collect it all and take it down there. The homeless group is mainly doing that sort of volunteer work, but they've also put together a little booklet to help Londoners in thinking through what can we do to help the homeless, ranging from things like buying the big issue, offering someone a cup of coffee. There's an app called London Street Link that enables you to be able to report where homeless people are staying to then care workers who will come out and chat with them and try and help assess their needs. They're starting to look at maybe there is some campaigning that we could do or joining with other campaigns, but mainly that's very volunteer-led at the moment. Our racial justice group is much more based on campaigning. In fact, the other 3 are all really more campaign-based. This came about because we did a series in the wake of the George Floyd murder last week on Black Lives Matter and on racial justice, and a group said we want to look more into this, and we've particularly focused on 2 areas, education and policing. So the group looking at education are researching what is the current requirement in the national curriculum for teaching on Black history, or actually history of all different ethnicities and races, and how can we bring more change to the national curriculum to ensure that we are teaching a more representative, a more accurate picture of history, of global history, not just selected parts of British history, maybe said from a more white biased perspective. So we're looking at that on education, and then a group of us are looking at policing, and especially the issue of stop and search, which disproportionately affects Black people over white people in London, and the use of body-worn video cameras, which are supposed to be mandatory, but still seemingly are not. How can we encourage that more so that all arrests, all stop and searches should be filmed by the police themselves? That's what we're looking at in racial justice, to try and bring genuine change, to try and turn some of the injustices of the world upside down. And as we go further in those areas, we find people that are also passionate about that, who may well not be Christians. And we say, hey, come and be involved in what we're doing. And each of the ways in which we're focused on justice is very informed by our spirituality, by following Jesus. So we pray at the beginning of all of our meetings. We believe in overcoming evil through love. And we explain that to people, or they pick that up as we go along. So we're not compromising our Christian principles, but we're hopefully starting to disciple people in what it means to follow Jesus by actually doing some of this justice stuff. Our third group is looking at climate change. We've created a checklist of activities that individuals could do to try and reduce especially their carbon footprint and become better stewards of the planet. We've created a bronze, silver and gold level of different activities where we can reduce our use of things, we can reuse things more, we can recycle more, or we can even switch to greener alternatives. And we've started to share that. In fact, just last night, we were unveiling that to the rest of the community. And then a group are starting to look more at COP26, the upcoming UK climate change conference, well, global climate change conference, but hosted by the UK. It was at the end of October, beginning of November in Glasgow. And is there more specific campaigning that we could do, or raising awareness on that in the lead up to it? And then our fourth group, kind of the least developed of these, is the financial justice group, where we're just starting to look at the issues of tax havens, particularly on banking secrecy and corporate ownership secrecy, and how can we reduce that in places like Switzerland, Luxembourg, the Cayman Islands, the City of London on our doorstep, implicated in all these things, in order to bring more financial justice, in order to stop the criminal gangs and the corrupt dictatorships from being able to move their money around so freely in the global economy. If there was more scrutiny, more transparency in these tax havens in the area of banking and in corporate ownership, then it would be so much harder for the evil perpetrators of this world, those who are doing immoral stuff that the vast majority of society says is wrong, and that actually they've tried to put sanctions against, but they're not able to shut down those money supplies. Campaigning on this, seeing change on this, would bring change that I think would affect so much. It would strike a massive blow at the people trafficking trade, at the illegal drugs trade, at all of these other justice issues. So we're starting to seriously look at what should we campaign on? How can we bring more awareness to this issue? Recognizing that for us, I suppose, as Sanctuary, we're based at Central Hall, Westminster, opposite Parliament, and then the City of London is just down the road, and we've got people that work in the city as part of our community. So how can we leverage all of that expertise in order to bring change in these areas? So those are 4 justice groups we've created that are each trying to, they're doing mission in and of themselves, because each of these things is trying to turn the world upside down. But by getting people involved in these, we find that we're giving people roles and responsibilities. We're discipling them. We're encouraging them. What does it mean to be a mature follower of Jesus? And this is actually transforming lives for the people engaged in the work. Linked to that, last thing I'll talk about is coaching conversations. And this is the thing that we haven't started yet, but we're wanting to properly start to roll out in the autumn. I have found one of the most profound things to help me grow is one-to-one conversations with people who are further down the road with me in that Christian walk and what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And so we've created a tool that enables our members to have those one-to-one conversations with each other. We've created a series of 6-session curriculums on topics such as how to pray, which goes through the Lord's Prayer, line by line, 6 sessions, or Jesus on leadership, what are the unique things that Jesus brought to leadership, an apologetics thing on questions about Jesus, what is the evidence that he existed, that he claimed to be God, that he rose from the dead, that kind of thing, relating to God and understanding of the Trinity, mental health and spiritual wholeness, we've talked about in helping people find faith, hope, love, joy, peace. So for each of these, there are 6 sessions with content that people can either look at on their own and read through, or they can discuss as a group, and we've done some of that at Sanctuary in our main meetings. We will go through these sessions. But the key is there are then separate resources to enable people to have one-to-one conversations with suggested questions that you can ask to a younger person in the faith and what it means to follow Jesus, to help them think through how they are going to personally apply all of this content. And we found that this is one of the most profound ways to help someone grow, to actually disciple them and see life change so that they become mature, radical followers of Jesus. It's those conversations where people think through, how am I actually going to apply this? Am I going to apply this? What do I genuinely think about this? And so we're calling it Pathways, is this whole resource that will enable people to be able to do that. And actually, that's a partnership. We're using it at Sanctuary, but it's mainly developed by the charity that I work for, One Rock International, that does Christian-based leadership training. So if you're interested in that, we want to give that resource away. We'll be able to give away the modules and the coaching booklets, the handbooks that have questions to help people think through, how can I structure this conversation so that you're not just meeting up for a coffee and you don't have anything to talk about. It's no, we want to give you the tools to do that. So we'll give away the curriculum and the coaching handbooks. And then we've also got extra training sessions on how to coach so that people can feel equipped to be able to do this role well. We're really excited about rolling this out in Sanctuary from the autumn, and we'd love to have other churches or networks that are interested in trialing this resource with us and being able to benefit from it. So if you're interested in that, do get in touch. I'll put up the contact details in a moment. Okay, so that was 6 things in terms of mission that we think are helpful, 6 things in terms of discipleship to help you in engaging effectively with millennials. These are the different ways that you can find more resources or get in touch. I already gave my Twitter up there. You can follow me on that. If you want to email me about any of this to continue the discussion, again, sorry that I couldn't be there for the seminar live, please do. That's my email, mark@onerockinternational.com. If you want any of these Pathways resources, I'd love to be able to share some of that with you. There's a website there, 100dreams.co.uk. That's a project that the Methodist Church is supporting and encouraging people in this age group, lay leaders or lay people aged 20 to 40 who have a missional idea, who might want to start something new for the kingdom. That's an amazing 1-year opportunity where they get phenomenal training and coaching for just £200 each. We've estimated that the value of it is about £5,000. So it's a fantastic deal. People can do it online. People can do it alongside their work commitments and busy family stuff. It's on Monday evenings online. We do that training and then they can fit the coaching around when they want to. So if you've got people or you yourself would be interested in that, check out 100 Dreams. Then for more info generally on One Rock, it's onerockinternational.com. For more information on that church planting model from Fresh Expressions, it's freshexpressions.org.uk. And then for more info on what we're doing, particularly in central London through Sanctuary, it is sanctuary-westminster.org. Hope all of that has been helpful. I hope you have some rich conversations around it in terms of what you might be able to best apply. And if you've got any other better ideas, please do give me an email. I need to learn. I'm still feeling like a beginner in all of this as well. Thanks for your time. God bless.